Today we're going to be looking at Chapter 3 Word Problems, Day 1. An important thing to remember on all these word problems is you will be permitted to use a calculator, which will make the calculations easier, but what will be really important is how you set up the problem itself. So if we look at example 1, Cody and Parker work for Duck Donuts. There are 112 donuts in the display case. Nikki would like to buy all the donuts with jelly filling and vanilla icing. Out of the 112 donuts, 1/8 of the donuts are jelly filled, and out of the donuts that are jelly filled, only 2/7 have vanilla icing too. How many jelly filled vanilla ice donuts is Nikki going to buy? So we want to start with first figuring out how many of the total donuts are jelly filled. So we would begin just simply by looking at this statement. 1/8 of the donuts are jelly filled. We know of in a word problem is going to imply multiplication. So we would simply take 1/8 times 112 and determine our answer. Now 8 does divide into 112, so if you think of this as multiplying 1/8 by 112 over 1, then it's the same as just dividing 112 by 8. 8 we know goes into 80 10 times, and that's a remainder of 32. 8 goes into 32 4 times, so this would give us a total of 14 jelly-filled donuts. Next, it says, out of the donuts that are jelly-filled, so out of those 14, only 2/7 have vanilla icing too. So now we can take 2/7 of the 14, which again, if we think of it as multiplying by 14 over 1, then we multiply straight across, we're going to get 28 over 7, which ends up being 4. For all word problems, make sure you do have a label with your final answer, and in this case it would be 14 donuts that are jelly filled and vanilla iced. Okay, next if we look at example 2, we are told that Amy is determining the value of the expression below, and then we need to circle the following expression or expressions that are equivalent to Amy's expression. So first and foremost, we need to figure out the value of Amy's expression. If we look in the parentheses, we have 4 and 15/100ths minus 3 and 65/100ths. So if we do that subtraction, we end up getting 0.5. So we'd have -2/5. And again, you can be using a calculator for this, but sometimes you don't even need to. And actually, normally we wouldn't even be able to see that answer there, but that gave us a little hint. So now if we took -2/5 times 0.5, we would simply, well, there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could think of it as -2 over 5 times 1 over 2, which would be -1/5 when you multiply together. So -1/5 is the same as -0.2. So either of those answers. So now we want to go through the different choices and figure out what they're equivalent to. So in choice A, we immediately start with what's in the parentheses. We notice we have minus a negative, so they're just going to both turn to plus. We also notice this 3 over 3 is a 1. So if we have 0.07 plus 0.13, that's actually going to be 0.2, and it's going to be positive, so we know that it is not going to be choice A. In letter B, it's probably best if they're both in decimal form. So if we change -2/5 into decimal form, that's -4/10 plus 1/10 would be -3/10, so it's not going to be choice B. In letter C, we have -1 5/10 divided by 7.5. If we divide 1.5 by 7.5, we get 0.2, and we notice that this was negative. So that one would be a winner. So C would work. Let's check D as well. Now we have 7.5 divided by 2.5. That's going to equal 3. 3 over 15 is a fifth, which does equal 0.2. However, it's not negative, so D does not work. So our only correct choice here was letter C. Now if we take a look at page number 2. Example 4. Ben is going to Pittsburgh Penguin Fan Fest. There are 9 people going to the event, and they are taking 2 cars. Ben pays $15 for each car to park. Ben is also paying for each person's ticket to the event. Ben is charged a total of $115.50 for parking and tickets. What was the price of each ticket? Write and solve an equation. So what we need to keep in mind here is we already know the cost of parking, and we know there's 2 vehicles. What we don't know is the cost of each person's ticket. So that's going to be the value of our variable. So I'm going to go ahead and write T equals ticket cost, because that's what we do not know. So when we're writing our equation, we can take that $15 per car, which would be 15 times 2, plus the 9 people that are going times T for each ticket that's purchased equals the total, which was $115.50. So when solving this, I would start by doing my multiplication over here, which would, of course, give me 30. And in order to start isolating my variable, I use inverse operations, so I would subtract 30 from both sides. When I subtract 30 from 115.50, I end up with 85.50. Divide that by 9, and we get $9.50, which tells us that each ticket costs $9.50. The only label here necessary would be the dollar sign. I'm sorry, I just realized I skipped example 3. Let's go back to that real quick. So in example 3, Olivia earned $448 working at Hello Bistro last week. Olivia earned $400 for a normal week. She also earns $4 for each additional fourth of an hour that she works overtime. For exactly how many hours did Olivia work overtime last week? Write and solve an equation. So we really want to pay special note to this part right here, which tells us that she earns $4 for every quarter hour. That's good information, but we can make it more meaningful by figuring out her hourly rate for overtime. So if we know that 1/4 of an hour equals $4, then if we multiply both sides by 4, that would tell us how much she earns in 1 hour, which is $16. So now when I write my equation, it's going to make it a whole lot easier. So I know that in a normal week, she earns $400. I know that for every overtime hour that she works, she's earning $16. And I know that in this particular week, she earned a total of $448. So now when I'm solving, I can start by subtracting the 400 using inverse operations. That'll give me 16h is equal to 48. Finally, I divide both sides by 16, and I find that h is 3, meaning she worked 3 hours of overtime. And the last problem, example 5. Mindy is making a bunch of brownies for her friends. For each cup of milk she needs 2 1/3 cup of flour. For each cup of flour she needs 1/7 cup of butter. Mindy is making so many brownies that she is using 18 cups of milk. How many cups of butter does she need to use? So basically this is like a progressive problem. If we know that for every 1 cup of milk, she needs 2 1/3 cups of flour, but she needs 18 cups of milk, then we need to do 18 times 2 1/3 to figure out how many cups of flour. So we can multiply those together. So you would probably want to change your improper fraction, your mixed number to an improper fraction first. So that would be 18 times 7/3. And if you're doing this without a calculator, you could divide the 18 by 3 to get 6, and 6 times 7 would be 42. So that's 42 cups of flour. Then we would take the 42 cups of flour times the amount she needs for each cup of butter. So for every cup of flour, she needs 1/7 cup of butter. So we would do 42 times 1/7, which is the same as 42 divided by 7, which will give us an answer of 6. So 6 cups of butter.